Hey guys, today you are working on section 6.6, which is graphing quadratic functions. And we did this a lot last year, especially right after Christmas. So hopefully this looks familiar. And the directions say graph each function for the domain of real numbers. So remember, domain is your x values, okay? So I'm going to make an xy table, and I'm just going to pick values for x. Now I like to stay around 0 so I don't get too far out on my graph. And I pick some negative, 0, and then some positive. And you can honestly pick whatever numbers you want. I just prefer to pick these because you usually can stay closer to the middle of your graph. Okay, so now we're going to plug in each of those numbers and solve the equation for y and see what y equals. So I'm going to say y equals negative 2 squared. I'm just using my first number right now, plus 2. So negative 2 squared is 4. And 4 plus 2 is 6. So when x is negative 2, y is 6. And I'm going to keep doing that with all the other numbers that I picked. So y equals negative 1 squared plus 2. Okay, and remember, when we are graphing quadratic functions, they are all parabolas. Remember, parabola is like that kind of U-shaped graph. And so the points are symmetrical. So you should see that some of your points on the y are going to repeat. So let's keep going. Y equals 0 squared plus 2. So y equals 2. Y equals 1 squared plus 2. Y equals 3. And then y equals 2 squared plus 2. Y equals 6. Okay, so see how some of my y values repeated? I have a 6 at the top and a 6 at the bottom. I have a 3 and a 3. So that shows me that my graph is going to be a parabola, but let's graph it just to make sure. So I'm going to graph negative 2 and 6. I'm going to graph negative 1 and 3. I'm going to graph 0 and 2, 1 and 3, and 2 and 6. All right, and then I'm just going to connect my dots the best that I can. And that's it. Okay, so copy this down. Yes, you need to take all these notes in your math journal, and then I'll be back with another one. All right, for number 2, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to make myself an XY table, pick some values for X, and then find out what Y equals when I use those values. So I'm going to pick the same numbers, and then I'm just going to plug in for X. So I got Y equals negative, be careful of this one, 2 times negative 2 squared minus 5. So in this one, you've got to follow order of operations or you're going to get the wrong answer. So order of operations says parentheses first, but we don't have that kind of parentheses, so we're going to do exponents first. So negative 2 squared is positive 4. And then I'm going to multiply these two next. Y equals negative 8 minus 5. Now I have an addition or subtraction problem. So be careful, you're not multiplying now, you're adding or subtracting. y equals -8 minus 5 is going to be a -13. Okay, well, let's keep going. -2 times -1 squared minus 5.
How much time until the Boy Scouts meeting?
Okay, so -2 minus 5 is -7. And keep going. Times 0 squared. Now all of this is going to equal 0 because anything times 0 is 0, okay? So I'm just left with -5 on that one. And then I'm going to plug in my positive numbers, which is going to equal the same thing as my negative numbers did because I'm squaring everything. It's going to equal the same thing. So whatever I had for 1 is going to be the same for -1. Whatever I had for -1, it's going to be the same answer for +1. Sorry. So I'm just going to write -7 because that's the same. And then the same for my -2 answer is going to be the same as my +2 answer. But this only works if you're squaring the number, if you're squaring the x. Sorry, that's +2. So y is going to equal -13. Okay, so -13 and -7. Okay, so now I just graphed those points. And if you remember from way back in your memory, when the a value or whatever number is in front of the x squared, when it's negative, our parabola is going to point down. Okay, so the last problem, the x was positive, so the parabola pointed up. This one, it's negative, it's going to point down. So just plot your points. Let's see, I don't think I can go to 13. So I'm just going to count by 2's. Hold on. Okay, I got it figured out. So I'm going to just graph my points now. So I have -2 and -13. Remember, you always move left or right first, then go up or down. So -2 and then to -13 is going to be there. -1, which is in the middle, halfway between, and -1. Oh, wait, that's a 7. That's going to be right there. Then my 0 and -5. And then 1 and -7. And remember, your points are going to mirror each other, so they should be right across from the points that you plotted on the other side. And then just connect your dots. All right. Okay, so make sure you're copying all of this down in your math journal. You know who I'm talking to. I know the ones of you who aren't doing it. Do it. So on the next page, page 270, the directions for this section say complete each ordered pair so that it corresponds to a point on the graph. So basically they give you this graph in the book, and then they give you these ordered pairs with pieces missing, and you have to tell what the missing part is. So when x is -1, -1's over here, what is y at? Y is at +2. When x is at 3, 1, 2, 3, what is y at? So follow the 3 up till you find that point on the y, and then that's your number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When y is 1, so now we're on the y-axis, here's the 1. What is x? X is 0. And when y is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here, what is x? Well, x has 2 possible answers for this one. When y is 5, x is either -2 or +2. All right, so that's all you're doing for that one. That's not too bad. It's just looking at the graph and saying what points go with the other numbers. So this is going to be in your textbook work later on in the week, so make sure you watch this video again if you need to when it's time for that textbook page. I will be right back to show you a little bit of how to do today's IXL. Okay, so here's today's IXL, and it says, again, in case you need it, learn with an example. So if you're not sure how to do it, read through the example. That will help you. And it says, look at this graph. What is the y-intercept? So I have to see, where does this graph cross the y-axis? Here's the y-axis. Where does it cross? At 0. And again, what are the coordinates of the vertex? So remember, the vertex is the point on the graph. It's where the graph comes together. It's either the highest point or the lowest point of the graph. If the graph is facing up, it's the lowest point. If the graph is facing down, it'll be the highest point on your graph. So my vertex is 0 because I didn't move right or left, and 1. What are the coordinates of the vertex again? So now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Looks like my x vertex is 3. And my y is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Negative 9. All right, what is the y-intercept? Where does this graph cross the y-axis? It crosses right at 0 this time. Okay, on this one it says, what is the equation of the axis of symmetry? So remember, the axis of symmetry is the line on these parabolas, because they're all either pointing up or down. It's going to be a vertical line that runs right through the center of the vertex. So my vertex is right here. Okay? So the equation for this line, so since I am going to graph a vertical line, it's going to be x equals, and where does this line run through the vertex? When x is at 0. That's the axis of symmetry. What is the minimum value of this function? Minimum value would be the lowest value on the y-axis. So it's talking about up or down. So the minimum value is going to be, I don't know if it wants 0 or y equals 0. Okay, we'll have to see if I get this wrong. I got it right. Okay, so just 0. Because 0 was the lowest point on that graph. Again, what is the minimum value of this function? So minimum is lowest. So the lowest value is at negative 4. And if it asked you for the maximum value, that would be a parabola that was facing down, and you're just going to tell me where the top of that parabola is at. So what is the equation for the axis of symmetry? Again, it's running through 0 again. So x equals 0. All right, and minimum value, lowest point, is at negative 8, I believe. What is the equation for the axis of symmetry? Again, hopefully you guessed it. X equals 0 because it's running right through the y-axis. Y-intercept. Where does this graph cross the y? It crosses right here, and that looks like negative 7. Okay, coordinates of the vertex. Remember, the vertex is the point right here. So x is 0 and y is at negative 9. All right, that's all I'm going to do because I'm going to run out of time. So email me if you have any questions, and I will see you next time. Bye.